Hey everyone, Zane here. So this past Friday, WWE put out 4 videos on their YouTube channel for something called Southpaw Regional Wrestling. The whole collection of videos is a little more than 20 minutes long, and it's quite simply some of the best wrestling comedy I've ever seen. I've had a lot of people since Friday asking me to talk about SRW on my channel, and originally I didn't really want to, not because I didn't think it was newsworthy, I just didn't know if I wanted to do a video where I just gush for 5 minutes. I mean, I like to have some positivity on my channel every now and then, but this feels like me just kind of like marking out. But I don't really care. The more I think about it, the more there's stuff I want to discuss and dissect and delve into and just explain more of why Southpaw is just so fantastic. For those of you who haven't watched the videos yet, Southpaw it's supposed to be an outlaw wrestling organization in the South in the late 1980s. There's no actual wrestling in these videos. It's all backstage skits with WWE guys dressed up in various costumes and wigs, acting like these parodies and caricatures of your standard classic 1980s wrestlers and gimmicks and on-air personalities. If you've watched any Mid-South Wrestling or Smoky Mountain Wrestling, a lot of which is on the network that belongs to the company that's putting these videos out, it is a spot-on parody. It's so dead on, this pitch perfect recreation of just the style and the setting and the motifs. It's very exaggerated, and it's certainly you look at the characters there and they're incompetent to the point of endearing, but it works. What I think I appreciate so much about this series is just the way they nailed the aesthetic of 1980s low budget wrestling promotions of the time. They do it in 4x3, that's the first thing. They put a VHS filter over it because it makes it more old school because it's on a VHS tape at the beginning. But just the way they shoot and edit it as well is just so pitch perfect. There's times where the camera is on the host for way too long after he tosses to a video package, but it just hangs on him and hangs on him and finally it cuts away. So there's this awkward pause, and that's a real thing. That is the reality of television sometimes. And the way people talk and interact with each other, it's so unpolished, it's not pretty, it's not like how wrestling is today. Everything's all scripted and shiny and everything. This is just gritty. I pop big time for some of the verbiage they use. The show's gonna be at the Armory, get your tickets at the pool hall, this show at the Veterans Hall, and near the high school. It's just so small time and territorial, and when you butt that up with what they're talking about, the upcoming shows, and the gravity of which they describe these things as these super serious, epic things, and you're talking about this local, small town territory thing. It's perfect. Let me just run down some of my favorite performers in the series. First of all, Rusev as Big Bartholomew, the farmer, clear MVP of this series, far and away. He just took the trophy and ran with it. The irony of someone with a broken English accent portraying a down-home southern farmer by itself is hilarious, but just what he says specifically, and whether, I don't know how much of it was scripted, how much of it was ad-libbed, but he was hilarious. Rusev has a knack for comedy, and I think it really shines here. I'm not going to give anything away of what he says or does, but you just have to watch the videos, or if you've seen the videos, you know what I'm talking about. John Cena as announcer Lance Catamaran, who I thought was kind of a hybrid of Gordon Soley and Ron Burgundy. He just really nailed the pacing and the cadence and tone of what you think of when it comes to old school drab wrestling announcers before they were all trained to be super amped and hyped about everything. He had some of the best lines, and I loved his use of adjectives, especially when talking about his broadcast colleague who was played by Fandango. Tyler Breeze as Mr. McElroy, the banker. He has some great lines too. I love the running gag of him struggling with his mustache, struggling with his wig. It was just awesome stuff, and he also is involved in one of the biggest twists in the series as well. Again, not going to give anything away, but there's definitely some Jerry Lawler influence in this joke here. Then of course Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson as Tex Ferguson and Chad Too Bad respectively. They were kind of one of the two main overarching storylines in this series. Of course, Tex Ferguson is a derivative of Sex Ferguson, which was a gimmick that Gallows came up with, and in some high spot videos he's done as well. And and also I saw an interview recently with Anderson talking about how this whole series is based on just stuff that these guys would do backstage to make each other laugh. So that's how you know that this is genuine comedy, when these guys are just doing, this is what they do on their off time to make each other laugh, and now they're putting it with a budget and production value. And again, it's that sort of thing really makes this pop to me. And really everyone in this series is amazing. TJ Perkins, Chris Jericho, Heath Slater, The Ascension, even Ric Flair as the voiceover for the KFC commercials in the middle of all these videos was great. Everyone was in top form. And by the way, KFC was the sponsor for all these videos. So when you think about it, these are some of the most entertaining, elaborate fried chicken commercials you'll ever see. I could talk about this for a long time, but in summation, I think Southpaw Regional Wrestling is some of the funniest, most entertaining stuff WWE's put out in a long time, possibly ever. And I don't think I'm speaking in too much of hyperbole hyperbole when I say that. They totally encapsulate everything that was like cheesy and fun and raw and gritty about territory wrestling in the 1980s. A lot of subtle nods to Gordon Soley and Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, like I mentioned before. I think everything they did, from like the characters and the pacing and the visuals and the story, was just dead on A++. They need to make more of these videos stat. I want to see episodes 5 through 8 for Southpaw Regional Wrestling up on YouTube next Friday. I want to see guys like Tex Ferguson and Clint Bobsky and Pelvis Wesley get called to the main roster immediately. And guys, I have to admit, I might have to retire Big Hoss McGraw after seeing these videos, because they took the whole gist of Big Hoss McGraw for me was that same kind of style of like territory wrestler, fish out of water, you know, slightly concussed, slightly harkening back to the good old days. And they took that whole gimmick, that whole vibe, and they just cranked it up 1,000-fold. And I don't think I can compete anymore with Big Hoss McGraw. It's just, I don't know, maybe he'll live in the world of unboxings forever. I don't know, but when I saw that, all I could think was like, man, I can't do that character anymore. I can't do that justice compared to what these guys did. So those are my thoughts on Southpaw. And again, I know I'm gushing. I know I'm usually more eloquent than this. I'm being overly effusive about this, but it's just something I feel needs to be praised and sung from the mountaintops. So thank you to all the people online who pestered me over the last couple days to talk about it. I didn't want to at first, but now getting off my chest and kind of sharing my thoughts about it out in the open like this, it makes me feel a lot better. And I'm glad that so many people enjoy this as well, and I really hope that they do more of this, you know, on YouTube, or do it on the network, or maybe do some interaction with the main roster stuff. I don't know, it's got to get out there. People need, suckers got to know about Southpaw Regional Wrestling. That's my final thought on it. Let me know what you thought about the series. You know, talk about some of your favorite lines, favorite moments, favorite characters in the comment section below. I really want to hear what you guys have to say and what your favorite parts about the series were as well. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.